Well, sorry, folks. The party's over. It's actually not over. It just went home. It's going to stay home from now on. So what I'm going to talk about, I want to tell you what I'm going to talk about in this video. So if you want to leave, that's fine. But there's a lot of talk about how Las Vegas is dying and all these other things are dying and cities are dying and towns are dying and vacations are down and there's not as many tourists. Well, I'm going to explain all that to you. But in order to explain all that to you, I have to give you the backstory, and I have to give you at least an insight onto my experience in this industry. Now, I know I don't talk about the restaurant industry or the bar industry or the booze industry very much in my videos because I do this to get away from that. But there's a lot of stuff going on out there right now that needs to be talked about, and I want to give you some insight into how it all happened. Now, bear with me for a minute. I want to give you my history. I was born in Ireland, and one of my first jobs, I had many jobs as a kid, like every kid does. I was all over the place. And one of my first jobs was as what they call a lounge boy. And I was, that's the equivalent of a busboy, except back then in Ireland, there was very few restaurants. It was just bars. And it was the same in America. Food coming into bars was a thing that came later. Anyway, I was a lounge boy, and what that entailed was I was a kid. I was like 15, and I would go around and I'd pick up empty glasses on the tables, wipe down the tables, put them on the bar. You know, I was a kid, and I would stock the shelves and do all that stuff. But back then, there was some serious drinking going on. There still is today, but back then there was serious drinking. Guys would come in and have a few pints. A lot of guys went in and had a few days of pints. And I'm not being funny here. And I'm not judging anybody, and I'm not condoning anything, or I'm not whatever. Just listen to what I have to say. So I then emigrated, and I'm making a long story very short. I then emigrated to America, and I came to St. Augustine, Florida, and I worked for my uncle building sailboats. I was also a mechanic in Ireland. Anyway, during the time I was building the sailboats, I befriended a man named Brady who had a bar in Florida, and I didn't just hang out with him, drink it every day. I was very young at this time. I was like 17 years old. And by the way, I've always looked older than my age. That was great when I was a kid because nobody carded me. And it sucks when you get old, but that's okay. So I kind of started working for him here and there. And then I went back to Ireland for a little while. Then I came back to America, and I ended up in Lake Havasu, Arizona. And then in Lake Havasu, Arizona, I worked selling Yellow Pages for a while. But then I got involved, and I got hired to work in a Holiday Inn. And during the time I worked in the Holiday Inn, I was bartending. I would go back and forth to New York. There was a bar I worked at in New York for a while, and then I went back out west. And then I ended up getting a job at a Holiday Inn, and I was a bartender there. I went on to be a food and beverage assistant manager there. And then a crew came into the Holiday Inn to develop the nightclub, to build the new nightclub for us. The nightclub was called Reflections. It was magnificent. The crew that came in were a crew out of Las Vegas. Now, I hooked up with those guys, and I ended up going to work in Las Vegas. I worked for a man named Jack Gallardi. He was the king in Vegas back then. He would go on to be one of the I believe he was the biggest strip club owner in the United States. Now, I worked for him at a club in called Mr. G's, which was a big nightclub. It was out on Sahara Boulevard. And he also owned the Crazy Horse, which was the original Crazy Horse strip club in Las Vegas. I ended up working there one night a week. I never worked there a lot, but I worked one night a week, and it was a big deal to work there. Then I came back to New York, and my family living in New York by this time. And then I got into working in a few bars, and then I ended up owning my own bar. So I've been in the business. I'm still in the restaurant business. It doesn't matter where. I'm not here to promote it. I'd rather not. But I still do it to this day. And I'm obviously much older. But there's a lot of talk now about how Las Vegas is dying. And I'm using Las Vegas as an example. And I'm going to tell you why it's dying. But not just Las Vegas is dying. The entire industry around alcohol and partying and entertainment and strip clubs and bachelor parties. It's all changing. And the reason it's changing is not because there's anything wrong with the economy, although there is. The main reason it's changing is it's all gone online. Everything is going online. Now, I'm going to go back again a little bit. My first experience that I believe was the beginning of the demise of the bar business and the partying business, let's call it that for a minute, was the introduction of the drunk driving laws. Now, I'm not, nobody should drink and drive. I've never condoned it. I never liked it. But that was the beginning. And sadly, what actually happened was the drunks still got in cars and drove, but good, hardworking people who were terrified to get a DUI, they kind of stopped coming to the bars. And that progressed over time as the laws got worse and worse and worse and worse. And then that was the one nail in the coffin. The next nail in the coffin was the smoking ban. A lot of people smoked, like most people smoked back then. There was probably a percentage, maybe 10% of people didn't smoke, 90% of people smoked. Don't quote me on that. Don't go telling me. I didn't do any research on this. I'm just giving you, the averages. In my bar at that time, the majority of people were smoking, and there were very few that were not smoking. So, of course, the big deal around that was everybody said, no, it's going to be great, because when people stop smoking in bars, then the non-smokers will all flock back in, and they'll want to hang out there because there's no smoke now. They're going to love it. Well, they never came back, because you know what? They don't. That's not how it works. And I still like that there's no smoking bars to this day. But let's go back. That took a lot of business away. More people now were like, you know what? I can't drive and have 2 beers or 3 beers. I shouldn't. And now I can't smoke. So you know what? I'm just going to go to the liquor store or the beer store, get a couple of buddies. We'll go to my house after work instead of going to the bar. That was it. Now, the real nail in the coffin was online dating. That was the big one. As soon as online dating came in, that really began to hurt us. And then you had the gym came into the picture. Do you remember back in the days, people would say, well, I don't want to go to pick up somebody in a bar. I'd rather meet them at the gym. That was back when people used to talk to each other at the gym. Nobody talks to each other anywhere now, which I'm getting to that. So you had the online dating. Now, fast forward to the advent of the internet on a wider scale. Facebook, actually the first one, if you remember, was MySpace. MySpace came into play, and that was great for a while because we used to use it to promote the bars and restaurants and nightclubs. But then Facebook came along. Then that added a whole new other level to it. And then the real destruction was Tinder. When Tinder came along, all of a sudden now, and I don't care if you like Tinder or you don't, Tinder is a hookup site. That's all it is. So now you don't have to go to the bar to do anything. You can't smoke. You certainly can't drive there. You're not going to meet somebody there. So you're like, well, I'll just go to the gym, or I'll just go online and I'll put up my profile and meet people there. And then Tinder comes along, and that adds a whole other level of this. By now, the iPhone is here. You have all the social media sites, and TikTok hasn't even happened yet, keep in mind. So now people are on their phones, they're on the internet, they're on Facebook, they're talking on Facebook. And then, of course, YouTube comes along. And YouTube became enormous. It was enormous. Everybody was on YouTube. Nobody was even watching TV anymore. They're on YouTube. And then you add in Netflix, right? And then you add in TikTok. TikTok shows up, and now everybody's on TikTok. And on top of all that, you have, I lost my train of thought there for a second. That happens when you get older. Oh, on top of all that, who comes along then? OnlyFans. So now you have OnlyFans, you have Tinder, you have all this stuff, and all the online porn, whether you like it or not, That's all available now. So in other words, think about Vegas for a minute. Vegas was big time drinking, big time gambling, which, by the way, I forgot gambling. Gambling is online already, right? So you had gambling, you had drinking, you had live shows, live music, you know, shows, like all kinds of shows. That's all on Netflix now, right? And then you had these comedic shows, like comedians, and you had Siegfried and Roy and all those shows. They're all online now. All of that stuff is online. The strip clubs, the strippers are online now, right? So this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And you can sit there all day long and say to me, oh, people will always want to go out and drink. They'll always want to go out and party. They always will want to go out to Vegas. They will, but just not as many. And just understand that. Las Vegas right now are trying to attract people with uber money, enormous amounts of money. You can no longer get a $5 blackjack table in Vegas. The minimum is $25. It doesn't exist anymore. Plus they have the resort fees, they have this fee, they have that fee. And what are you hearing about now? In the restaurant business? In the bar business? I can't afford it anymore. I can't afford to buy drinks. I can't afford to go out to dinner. And you know what I'm sick of also? I'm sick of tipping. I just did a video the other day about tipping, and it's called tipflation. People are sick and tired of tipping. So I'm telling you right now, you don't have to take my word for anything I have said in the video, but I want you to sit back and think about where we were and where we are now. And I'm going to leave you with this last thought. The last generation of partiers that I would say, you know, drank substantial amounts of alcohol, partied substantially, hooked up substantially, they're the millennials. They're getting a little older now. The people coming behind them, they're not into booze, man. They're just not. They're not doing it. And you know what? Maybe they're smarter. I quit drinking a little over a year ago, and I'm not going to say I'll never drink again. I didn't quit drinking because I'm an alcoholic or I had a problem. It was a distraction for me, and I've been looking at it all my life. I've been in the business. I still love it. I still love to be around it, but it just, I guess I got bored with it, you know, and you know, if something happened that was really joyful in my life, I might have a drink, but I don't have a desire to do it on a daily basis. And that's just me. But I want you to look around you, and I want you to look on YouTube. There's a huge emphasis now on quitting drinking and quitting alcohol. So where did all these people go? Do yourself a favor. Go on TikTok on a Friday night, or go on YouTube on a Friday night, or go on Facebook on a Friday night. TikTok especially, everything in the world is on TikTok. You have women on there, you know, having fun. You have men on there having fun. You have all kinds of musicians on there. You have musicians that are broadcasting on their TikTok page live from their venue, wherever they are and wherever they're playing. And people send them money. I don't know how it works, but as far as they send them roses and gifts, and I'm sure it adds up to a few bucks. You have other people who have their own channels. They're just sitting there playing music for hours and hours and hours. I mean, there's a guy on there. He's a bass player. I forget his name. Freak bass guy or whatever. He's really good. He's like this really cool, brilliant bass player. He's on TikTok just about every night. And he's really good. That's what I'm saying to you. I sometimes, now that I don't drink, I sometimes come home a lot earlier. And, you know, I'll be on TikTok just scrolling, and Freak Bass guy will come on, or whatever his name is. And I'm like, oh, there he is. And he'll play a few tunes. And you can send him little gifts, and then he will play a song for you. You know, you can request songs. And I know people think that online is impersonal. It's actually, in many ways, it's more personal. You know, and you can have one-on-one conversations with people. That's why I have a YouTube channel, because I can have a conversation here And I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know who you are, but I'm telling you the truth because this is what I believe. And I see all these things going on, and I see the news come on. Vegas is dying. The restaurant industry is dying. This is dying. That's dying. This is great. Go over here. Look over here. I talk about Tesla. I love Tesla. You're more apt to find me going to a Tesla event now than anything else. And that's another thing that's growing around the country, Tesla events. So we're changing. Our habits are changing. The world is changing. And I don't necessarily think it's all bad. I think people my age, I'm in my 60s, I think people my age are complaining. I hear friends of mine complain. They're like, oh, it's so boring, and the bars are not the same. This is not the same. Nobody talks to each other. They're all on their iPhones, their cell phones, whatever. It's like, what is wrong with the world? And I'm like, well, I kind of discovered a community on X of Tesla people, and I've become friends with a lot of those people. I go to Tesla events. I like watching Freak Base Guy, and I would certainly rather watch Freak Base Guy on TikTok than listen to you bitch about how bad the world is, So I think we all need to open our minds and accept that this is the future. This is where we're going. The other thing, as you know, I've talked about it in videos before, X, I get everything on X. I get the news. I have a social life on there. I get my Tesla stories. I study what's going on with politics and world events. X is a fantastic platform, and it's total freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, within reason. But I find it to be very honest, and that's why I call this channel Truth Tom. I just want to tell you the truth. And on X, I'm Truth Tom also, and you'll see my discussions on there about various things that are going on, and I find it very educational. I find YouTube very educational. I'm big into camping and van life, and I don't know, am I better off sitting home on a Saturday night if I'm not at work, learning about, the latest technology and solar charging for camping, or, the latest camp mode on my Tesla, and how I can put a mattress in the back of my Tesla here and sleep in it and have climate control and get window shades? And am I better off doing that than sitting in a bar all night and trying to hook up with some woman I don't even know? I don't know. You tell me. I wouldn't be doing that anyway because it's not my scene. But we keep knocking all this stuff. But I think the world in so many ways is getting so much better and kinder and more friendly. And when you go online, you really meet nice people. So if you're sitting in the bar or you're sitting at the club or whatever it is, and you're wondering where did everybody go, maybe you're just looking in the wrong place, man. Like, seriously. I've made some great relationships online. But anyway, I digress. If you want to know what's going on in Vegas, what happened in Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? What happened in Vegas is Vegas left and went online. That's what happened. The people didn't disappear. They just disappeared into the metaverse. And that's where we are now. And by the way, I lost my train of thought again a minute ago. I was talking about Grok. Go look at Grok. You can now, on your Grok app, there's a feature called Imagine. If you click on Imagine, all these different pictures will come up. You can click on a picture and you can hit make a video, and it will create a 6-second video of any picture on there. Now, if you go on your iPhone and you take a picture of you and your buddy and you put it in there and hit Imagine, create a video, it will bring your photograph to life. Trust me, I do it every day. I do it with menu specials. When I post them online, I create these little videos, and it will show the food with steam coming out of it, or somebody putting it on the table. It does all this animated stuff, and people think it's real. It looks like live video. And it's so much fun to play with this stuff. Now, some of my videos that you've watched here, I know, are in video.ai. I will come up with a subject. I just did one before this video on Mars and how there's a possibility we'll go to Mars, blah, 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 blah. It's a 15-minute video. I did some research. I put the research into the prompt, and it generated an entire 15-minute video for me. People are having fun with this, man. That's what's going on. That's where everybody is. And listen, if you're still here, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and share the video and leave a comment down below. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what you think. And I don't care if your comments are nice or nasty. I respect all. Have a great night.